Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of Costa Rica's perfect stone spheres, the unsolved mystery. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. When United Fruit Company workers began clearing jungle in the Diquis Delta of Costa Rica in the 1930s to plant banana trees, they found something extraordinary: large, almost perfectly spherical stone balls scattered across the landscape. Some were small enough to carry, others measured over 2 meters in diameter and weighed up to 16 metric tons. Most were nearly perfect spheres, deviating from a true sphere by less than 2%. They had been made by people who had no metal tools and no written language. More than 300 of these spheres have been documented, made from granodiorite quarried from the Talamanca Mountains and transported up to 100 kilometers from their source. They range from a few centimeters to over 2 meters in diameter. They were apparently arranged in alignments and geometric patterns, and almost nothing is known about who made them, when they made them, or what they were for. The people who created them left no written records, and the Spanish conquest so thoroughly destroyed the indigenous cultures of Costa Rica that even oral traditions about the spheres are fragmentary. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Ancient technical knowledge is remarkably vulnerable. It lives in the hands of craftsmen, in the minds of engineers, in the institutional memory of workshops and guilds. When a civilization collapses through invasion, plague, climate change, or internal conflict, that knowledge can vanish within a single generation. There is no guarantee that what is written down will be preserved, and much ancient knowledge was never written down at all. It was transmitted orally, apprentice to master, in a chain that a single catastrophe could permanently sever. This vulnerability helps explain what might otherwise seem impossible, that the ancient world possessed capabilities we did not recover for centuries or millennia. The Romans knew how to make self-healing concrete by mixing volcanic ash with seawater. When the empire fell, the recipe was forgotten. Medieval European builders worked with inferior materials for over 8,000 years before the technique was rediscovered through analysis of surviving Roman structures. The knowledge did not disappear because it was suppressed or hidden. It simply died with the people who held it. Apply this principle more broadly, and the anomalies of the ancient world become less mysterious, not in the sense of being explained, but in the sense of being plausible. If Rome could lose a concrete formula for a millennium, what else might have been lost? What might advanced cultures in earlier epochs have discovered and then lost, leaving only fragmentary traces, a strange artifact here, a suggestive diagram there, that later generations would struggle to interpret? This is the question at the heart of every anomalous discovery from the ancient world. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding Costa Rica's perfect stone spheres. The unsolved mystery is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Costa Rica stone spheres are concentrated in the Diquis Delta region of southwestern Costa Rica, associated with the Diquis archaeological culture that flourished between approximately 800 AD and 1500 AD. However, some spheres may be older. Dating is complicated by the absence of organic material directly associated with the spheres themselves. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the spheres were carved from granodiorite, a hard, igneous rock, using stone tools and abrasive sand in a process that required enormous labor over extended periods. Experimental archaeology has shown that producing a single large sphere by these methods could take several years of sustained effort. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The largest spheres weigh up to 16 metric tons and required transport of up to 100 kilometers from the quarry sources in the Talamanca Mountains. No wheeled vehicles or draft animals were available. Experimental reconstructions suggest the spheres were moved on wooden rollers and sledges using large numbers of people. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, archaeological surveys have documented that many spheres were originally arranged in geometric patterns, lines, triangles, and other configurations, suggesting they functioned as landscape markers or astronomical indicators. Unfortunately, most spheres were moved from their original positions by fruit company workers or by landowners before their significance was understood. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of a small number of spheres were placed in sets that point toward magnetic north or toward specific astronomical phenomena. If this pattern is genuine, it implies that the sphere makers possessed astronomical knowledge consistent with a sophisticated calendrical or navigational tradition. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The spheres were listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2014 as part of a group of pre-Columbian chiefdom settlements in southern Costa Rica. Several spheres remain in situ in their original positions, while many others have been moved to museums, private gardens, and government buildings. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. Equally puzzling to investigators, Spanish colonial chronicles make almost no mention of the spheres, suggesting they were already centuries old and their original function forgotten by the time of European contact. The complete absence of ethnographic context makes interpretation almost entirely archaeological. Taken together, These facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Costa Rica's perfect stone spheres, the unsolved mystery. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the spheres functioned as status symbols and boundary markers for elite chiefdoms, their perfect spherical form and enormous size demonstrating the ability of a chiefly lineage to command the labor required to produce them. The larger the sphere, the greater the social power demonstrated. This is currently the most widely accepted archaeological interpretation. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. Remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the spheres were astronomical markers arranged to track celestial bodies and define a sacred landscape. The geometric arrangements and the astronomical alignments claimed for some groupings would be consistent with a culture that, like many complex chiefdom-level societies, organized its ritual life around celestial cycles. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the spheres held religious or cosmological significance as symbols of the Earth, the Sun, or other celestial objects, placed in the landscape as anchors of supernatural power. The near-perfect spherical form may have symbolized cosmic completeness. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Costa Rica's perfect stone spheres, the unsolved mystery, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes petrographic analysis of sphere material has confirmed that the granodiorite used comes from specific quarry sources in the Talamanca Mountains, confirming that the SB here's required long-distance transport of very heavy material, itself evidence of significant organizational capacity. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the few spheres that remain in their original archaeological context show association with high-status mound burials and elite residential structures, consistent with the status symbol interpretation and indicating that sphere ownership was restricted to chiefly elites. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed three-dimensional laser scanning of multiple spheres has confirmed their extraordinary roundness, with many deviating from a true sphere by less than 2%, a level of precision that implies either sophisticated measurement techniques or an extended process of guided abrasion capable of achieving spherical form without instruments. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Costa Rica's perfect stone spheres, the unsolved mystery. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Costa Rica stone spheres are now threatened by climate change. Intensifying tropical storms are eroding the sites where in situ spheres remain, and the conservation resources available in Costa Rica are limited. The mystery of their precise function may never be fully resolved because so many spheres were displaced before their archaeological context could be recorded. They stand as a reminder that cultural destruction is not always violent. Sometimes it happens in the course of planting bananas. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Costa Rica's perfect stone spheres, the unsolved mystery, from the historical record through the physical evidence. Cross the competing theories and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Costa Rica's spheres ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process, and the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.